thank you very much for having me here. So, I would like to start sharing the main findings from the research that was conducted a year ago within the state-funded research program. So, our aim, together with Professor Ieva Zemīte from Riga Technical University, was to focus on economic impact assessment of the music sector in Latvia. And I should stress that Cultural Capital as a resource for sustainable development of Latvia is the main project and program which is ended right now. So, the methodology used to identify the music sector was based on the statistical classification of economic activities, so NACE. Those data were selected according to the available data from Latvian Central Statistical Office. So we should take into account the following constraints. Firstly, the boundaries of the sector are unclear, and the NACE codes do not precisely reflect the types of activities. 23 code classes have been reviewed for reflect the type of activity, and only 16 of them were relevant. The study identifies the music sector not only in terms of subsectors, but also in terms of related sectors that participate in the production chain of cultural goods and services. So we distinguish music sector manufacturing from manufacturing in auxiliary cultural industries that revised performing arts and audiovisual arts to find NACE codes allocated to the music sector. So you see those two divisions. We analyzed enterprises in those NACE codes to identify their field of activity based on their performance. For example, a significant share of the theater and visual arts sector has registered in those codes are. Also, more than 50% of the enterprises registered in the class represent the music sector. This code tracks the activity of the music sector precisely, but the codes allocated to manufacturing in the music sector describe rental activities. And it's important to mention that this division is based on the Spanish Culture Satellite account, which regularly samples data to define the boundaries of the cultural sector. So here comes the identification of auxiliary cultural industries with a focus on manufacturing. If we analyze the enterprises registered, for example, in the code manufacture of musical instruments, it covers only 12 units. Furthermore, it includes companies active in the development of music technology, and I would mention some, Babbitt and Friends, Erika Sins, and the creation of a unique offering in the musical instrument markets as Kļaviņš piano. It is important to mention that Game Changer Audio Ltd., which is known as one of the most export-oriented companies in the music industry in Latvia, has only indicated this code as a second one. Therefore, it's not included in the statistics. This group of codes, trade and repairs, focuses more on services and sales. Also, the use of the NACE codes does not provide complete information for the identification of the music sector. It does allow boundaries to be drawn and statistical data to reveal the economic activity of the sector, which were quite important parts. So the performance of the sector was analyzed within the period of 5 years. It's 2016 to 2020. And so we can see that in 2020, there were around 2,500 economically active enterprises in the music sector and auxiliary cultural industries together. But majority were in the music sector. To compare data from 2016, there was a rapid growth in the music sector by the number of enterprises, and it increased by 45%. We consider that it might be connected with regulations more than with natural entrepreneurial activities. And it's due to the support instruments provided by the Ministry of Culture for the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Enterprises were encouraged to revise their registered codes and re-register under the R90 codes to be directly supported. The music sector and auxiliary culture industries employ just under 6,000 persons in Latvia. In 2020, part of them were in the music sector, part in the auxiliary culture industries. That illustrates a lot of precarity of the music sector, solo enterprises and mostly outsourced resources. Despite the fact that the value added of the music sector is relatively small, the total value added by the music sector and auxiliary industries has been around €1 billion annually. The value added by the music sector has increased every year. Also, there was a drop in 2020 due to the COVID pandemic. Even in 2020, the music sector generated more added values than in 2016. This reflects the growth and development of the music sector and its ability to produce more and more products with higher added value, which is essential for the development of the Latvian economy. It is important to stress that artistic activities bring the highest value added. To conclude, growth in value added has outpaced growth in the number of people in employment. Over the period 2016-2019, which has contributed to the increase in labor productivity over the period analyzed. As data for the total impact analysis are available only at the level of code R, arts, entertainment, and creation, and the cultural sector is macroeconomically identified with this code, the economic impact on the Latvian economy should be considered at the level of the cultural sector. It's not just the music sector, it's cultural sector. To assess the economic impact of the cultural sector, the symmetric input-output tables product by product published by the Central Statistical Office were used as a source of statistical data. The method used was economic impact, where direct, indirect, and induced effects are calculated to gain the total impact. Direct impact measures economic performance within the sector itself. The revenue is passed on to businesses through the purchase of goods and services from businesses in their sector. Indirect impacts are visible in the activities of the auxiliary industries. Direct impacts arise when expenditure in the enterprises of the economic sectors is further spent on goods and services needed. For example, logistics, security, maintenance, and so on. The induced effect rises from household spending in the income generated in the music sector, as well as from the cultural spillover effect. So the question was, how much total output will increase if demand for cultural products increases by 1 unit, €1? So I would like to show the results. The total impact on the local economy was calculated for each of the sectors to find out the significance of the cultural sector. The sectors with the highest impact on the local economy are those ones: construction, education, accommodation, and food service activities. The next sectors are with the same impact on the local economy, and we can see here transportation and storage, other services, activities, and human health and social work activities. Now, the culture sector is listed as the 9th of 19 sectors. By presenting those results, we have received a lot of comments from the professionals who emphasize the meaning and awareness of the cultural sector, and those results gives them an opportunity to do so. Those sectors are mostly service-based, and just good to know their impact, and it's less than cultural sector's impact. And I haven't added here 3 more. Agriculture, forestry and fishing with a 2.4, manufacturing 2.4, and electricity, gas, steam and air conditioning supply 2.35. To conclude, the lowest impact on the economy are by the sectors as mining and quarrying, water supply and waste management, financial and insurance activities, and real estate activities. Also, there is a lot of different researches and surveys analyzing the economic impact of music in Europe, in particular countries. The topicality of this theme within the sector does not reduce. There are several characteristics that allows us to foresee possible income impact. Collaboration with other sectors, and of course, cultural tourists, which bring new money to the economy. Our results are confirmed by comparison. As you see, the economic impact of music in Europe stresses that every euro directly generated or invested by record companies led to additional GDP contribution, 1.8 contribution in other parts of the music sector value chain. Our research conducts that every euro directly generated or invested by culture sector lead to additionally 1.53 euro contribution to the local economy in Latvia. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation, Ieva. If I may ask, maybe the first question, what added value for the culture sector itself does such an analysis provide in terms of communication with other sectors and in communication maybe with governmental organizations?
Firstly, I would like to emphasize self-esteem. That's very important because there is a lack of self-esteem, and even if we speak about policymakers and those who are the ones responsible for decision making, even those persons are in the positions where they do need those arguments and they don't have it. So, and in this research, we also, it wasn't our idea to like evaluate economic impact. It was asked from the Ministry of Culture to do that because they need to support their decisions. They need it to be within negotiations with the Ministry of Finance. They do really need those economic impact value approval.
Dear delegates, firstly, do you have any additional questions to the research and the presentation you just witnessed? And after that, we can imagine we are having a roundtable discussion in the setting we are currently organized in.
Just one question. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. Are the classifications of the music economy comparable to other European countries, or is it a typical Latvian classification?
No, it's a common classification. We started with the Eurostat data, and what I mentioned also, this is a Spanish account where they gather those data like on regular basis. So we used also the methodology because they have dealt with already the 4 digits. So mostly it goes to 2 digits, but they are like on real work dealing with 4 digits. So yeah, it's comparable.
Thank you very much. I have several questions, and just looking at which one to ask first. I think most importantly, did you measure only direct impact or also impact, let's say, on culture tourism, on other areas? Because what I understood from presentation is only directly, like, for example, if I produce recordings, I buy paper, I hire designers, but let's say, for example, if you add value to the cultural fabric of the city, and that attracts money not directly to that sector, through that sector, but through other sectors like tourism or like other sectors of economy. Did you measure that? Or maybe that's even greater than this 1.53?
Yeah, it's all there already. Sorry, but it's all there already. Because, yes, we measured, so economic impact direct, indirect, and induced. So it's all three levels, and also household expenditures, and also all related sectors, all the relations, maintenance, gas, infrastructure, so logistics, transportations I mentioned already. So all IT support, all of those are already in connection, indirect, so services and goods out of culture sector, so in the relationship, so next level indirect. So the first direct, it's within cultural sector, within this R code where it's all is within sector, and so the next step is indirect, where those are already collaborations and transfers between sectors.
What is induced as opposed to indirect?
Induced, it's mostly expenditure of the households spending the income generated in the music sector as well as from the cultural spillover effect. So those are already household expenditures.
And if I may a follow-up, then what is your conclusion? As I understand, the Ministry of Culture asked you to do this for a particular reason, so that they can argue that every euro that you spend in culture will bring 1.53 back. Compared to other countries and also compared to other sectors, what is your conclusion that you've drawn from this study, if any?
Yes, it's quite the same. I also tried to a little bit compare with music impact in Europe. So you saw it 1.8, 1.5, it's culture sector. The whole in the construction, which does the best job, it's 3.1, 3.3, not even 1, 3.06. So to compare, actually, culture sector is in a quite good position. Its impact is quite important, and we can measure it, and it's even more than expected from the perspective of the culture sector. And to compare with the construction, which of course gives the most total impact to the whole economy, it's still quite relevant to compare it.
While preparing this research and gathering data, did any foreign studies regarding the specific impact of non-governmental organizations come into your view?
I haven't researched this particularly, but it would be quite hard we should use another methodology, because in this one we are working with statistical data which are gathered together if we speak about the whole sector. And we can't just get out NGOs from that.
Definitely, because NGOs come in all shapes and sizes and varieties.
So, yeah, so statistically then we should use another approach to calculate an economic impact. And there is a lot of studies done, like calculating particular festivals' economic impact, particular activities, particular cities, joint activities. As for example, Riga Culture Capital, there was a bunch of researchers, what kind of economic and social impact was gathered by this activity. So, yeah.
Is this a structure that you've set up and will be measured ongoing every year now, or is this a one-off research?
Actually, we will do it once again, because now multiplier was taken from 2015, and it's quite a lot period, and now the new one multiplier is available. It's 2020s. It wasn't available previous year, but it's available right now. So we will do it once again next year, and so it will give us an opportunity also to compare.
Do you have data about public expenditure on music sector in Latvia?
Yes, we have. Unfortunately, it's not translated in English, but I have it, yes, and I could share it with you
A little bit more general question. From experience, both personal and observations from the public sphere, there has been a long-standing stereotype about culture as only spending money and not generating any additional value, and numerous directors of festivals and other art events have argued also on multiple occasions that they do actually provide this added value. In your view, as a researcher, maybe your anecdotal experience as such, has the public perception of culture shifted throughout the years, or do we still have to battle this misconception of culture as being only luxury without any benefit?
Unfortunately, we still have to battle. And yes, and that is my constraint as well, because if we speak about science and cultural economics, then it has been already way far away from the beating with economic impact as like a very valuable tool. But to be totally honest, it helps a lot still, giving this self-esteem, giving this power to the people from the sector, and even those who are decision makers, policy makers, even those we should persuade that culture is a sector which actually has a huge economic impact to compare. So it's quite huge. And so it's still, we have to educate ourselves, we have to educate our decision makers, we have to, and I even thought that might be not necessarily to do those kind of researches anymore, but just to create a huge posters all around to Riga and say culture has economic impact, culture has that kind of economic impact, so it might be helpful.
And then we will get responses on social media. And how much did you spend on those, this visual
yes, that's research money, and you will answer that.
Well, jokes aside, any additional questions? If not, then I wonder what next 5 years might show if we do a similar research, because we had a couple of years of pandemic, and is this in your plans for the future, making a similar research project?
So we will do, as we have this multiplier for 2020, so we will do once again this economic impact analysis. Let's see the results, because they might differ quite a lot due to pandemics, but that's one turn. Another is this dissemination of the results. It's even more important.
Yeah, Egil, you have a question.
If I may, another question. Did I understand correctly from the research that despite of the COVID, the music sector continued growing? If so, then how do you explain that? Because it seemed like everything was stopped.
Yeah, and it might be our assumption, but I think that this turn and this requirement from the Ministry of Culture, when they asked to register companies, it helped from the numbers. The activity, it's just, that's our assumption, that it shifted, not that it was like natural entrepreneurial activity, but it might help also that some of them registered. And so we also know that due to regulation of creative persons and opportunity to support them, they also have to decide whether they are going to register as a companies or self-employed persons. And a lot of those gray zones and opportunity, we have not like completely get out of it, but there is, I would say that COVID helped to a little bit clarify.